Hey, welcome to Shop Talks, everybody. Shop Talks is a presentation of In Kitchen. I'm from the In Kitchen. I'm Rick Roth. We have all kinds of sponsors here. Very generously contribute so you get all this free information. And the Impression Show as well puts this on. Really happy here to have my friend Monty Mims here. I usually implicitly do it, but I'm going to explicitly say one reason I have the people that we have up here on the Shop Talks is that so you will know sort of the best and brightest people, and you'll know people that you can trust for information. And Monty is one of those folks. And so I'm really happy to have him here. We're going to talk a little bit about software, process software, production software. He has to study it as part of his job, which is he's part of the Decorator team of SanMar. They're sort of the leader of, for like, I think since dinosaurs ruled the earth, they have had a team that actually cared that you decorated their garments. What a concept. Anyway, so Monty, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with software these days.
Thank you for that kind introduction and appreciate you asking us to join here. I have a unique background. I grew up in my dad's decoration business, really grew up with SanMar over the last 17 years, and I'm part of a team that does specialize in listening, learning, talking, working with, collaborating with decorators and affiliates, many of the people exhibiting at the show, which does include software. So yes, I have had a part-time that's increasingly becoming a big part of what I do is listening, learning, networking with a lot of the different shop systems in the industry, both on the decorated apparel side and on the promotional product side. And that's in service and support of our customers.
I would ask a leading question here. It seems to me actually that decoration in some ways is becoming less important, and it's like, what the hell just came in the door, then we decorate it, and where does it go? So that seems like the more of an issue these days than the actual getting it decorated. Is that fair to say?
A little bit. The big picture, grand landscape, when you have the promotional products industry, you have folks that are more focused on selling and marketing, and then you have decorators, right? So they're selling direct, but then there's a big contingent of contract decorators. That world had been a little behind, admittedly, in systems and technology, but we've seen through the pandemic where everything's been amplified. End users are expecting more. They want visibility. They want transparency. I need to know where my order's at. When is it getting here? And frankly, there's been a lot of catching up over the last several years. And that's what's kept me busy, keeping up, trying to keep tuned in to who's doing what, why, and also helping, because there's a lot of even software systems. They're struggling with integrations. They're struggling with interconnections to other systems. And in some cases, relating to decorators that have a very particular nuanced way of how the sausage gets made. And if you're from outside the industry and you don't understand those fundamentals, it's going to be a struggle.
So what should people be looking for these days? What could they expect on the high end of what some of these systems will do?
Yeah, so I've kind of noticed two different morphs, you could say, over the last several years. Either systems that do everything, and historically they'll start with, say, just shop management, and they've adapted into web stores, let's say, right? Or somebody that started as a web store platform has adapted into shop management. The challenge that they were facing during that time to kind of connect things together was lack of integration. And that was a challenge for a lot of things through the industry, but that alone is also improved greatly. And so now you have systems that can do everything. Maybe, one was a little bit lighter, but it's gotten better. And then you've had a really good shop management system and a really good web store system, but they're interconnected. So you've kind of got best of both worlds.
So I haven't really studied a variety of them. Are getting easier to use, like the user-friendly? I remember evaluating one that I didn't care for, and it was like, oh yeah, this is easy to function. This functions easy.
Yeah.
It was like boom, 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 like 7 menus down was the information you wanted to do. And it's like, oh, I need a PhD in ShopWorks to do this. Oh, sorry. Well, anyway, so like is it got any of that gotten easier with the different softwares?
You would hope so. I mean, if you have really good technology, that's part of what makes it good, right? Is that you can bring new employees in, and it's not a 3-week or 3-month course to learn how to use the system. So in the tech space, you have user interface, you have how that flows, how that operates, and I would say to your point, we are seeing a little bit of that legacy changing of the guard from really deep, extensive things that have long supported many great shops, but they need to adapt. Most people are doing their engagement with this, right? So if it's not compatible with your smartphone and you're bringing in an increasingly younger labor force who's been raised on digital efficiency and they don't get it, if it's not connecting, there's going to be a lot of frustration points and ultimately you want a smooth path, not a rough one.
And then how's the integration going with garment suppliers and equipment people? So I know I saw Stahl's had a new system, that integrates like the production software and their production. How's it going with like the automatic equipment and the embroidery machines and that? And then how's it going with in terms of the garment people giving you the garments and it fitting into the system?
Yeah. So you bring up a couple.
How's that for a big question?
Right. Do we have a few more minutes? It is true though. You see a lot more companies that traditionally weren't thought of or in the space or utilizing technology. It's inclusive of their output, right? They can be somebody who just sells heat presses, but now they're incorporating that into a larger, ecosystem. And then you also you mentioned equipment itself. I don't study that as much as I do shop management and stores and sort of other things like on-demand systems that are emerging quickly. But I can only imagine that yes, if you're in the embroidery business and you've been doing it this way forever, but now you're bringing someone in and they're fumbling around with a thumb drive versus barcode scanning and auto loading, the technology right in. That has to be
we
scaling.
have barcode scanning.
Yeah.
So like you got the order and then hit the barcode and it pulls down the digitizing file.
One of the really good things that was sort of on the back half of the pandemic was the labor challenge, right? And that's not gone away, but it's really changed. And that does correlate to technology because you're bringing in these folks that, again, they're raised on digital efficiency. I can attribute a lot of this kind of thought into those that were raised playing video games, right? Video games walk you through a path of a beginning, a middle, and an end to succeed and get to that point. Well, if you walk into a shop as a new employee and it doesn't feel very smart, doesn't feel very efficient, those are the stories we hear about every day of I brought someone in, I trained them up on my process with my stuff, and they were out the door the next week or something, right? They sensed that the efficiency, the flow, how things were moving in this business wasn't good enough, wasn't to their liking, didn't jive with where their head's at, and they're going to go to a business that's got really good technology.
So which system is the Space Invaders system?
They're all heading in that direction. It'll all be Space Invaders before you know it. It'll all be Space Invaders.
And then how about integration with the garment suppliers? How's that going?
Yeah, I mean, I see that getting stronger. There were many leading systems for many years that didn't have a meaningful connection to the blank wholesale suppliers and distributors. Things like promo standards, smarter, better, faster APIs have really helped that. And again, that was a pain point that a lot of folks felt. In 2020, there was a huge burst of people trying to sell through web stores, sell online, because we didn't know if we were going to be in person anymore. And then in 21, 22, there was a huge burst in the shop management, the back-end systems. And what those meaningful results of an integration get you are your account-specific pricing. So stop accepting generic, not really what I'm paying price feeds. Live data with your inventory. That again became critical when we were falling short on meeting inventory to your liking. Now I can have a web store that will gray out the ST650 Navy large because it's pinging our servers and it's showing that there's not enough stock to be comfortable with. It stops the headaches that our customers deal with before they even happen, right? So I'm going to move over to a different color, pick a different product, and there's ways to control that and manage that. Could it have been done 5-6 years ago? Sure, but it was a steep hill of labor and a process. Now we're seeing those types of service benefits readily available.
So what functions have you seen lately that like really impress you since you're kind of looking at all the different softwares?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the buzzword, I came from Vegas, I'm here today, the buzzword we're seeing kind of across the landscape is on demand, right? So with the integration, that backbone, that architecture that is now readily available, the idea of selling a product, whether it's a predetermined logo and variable decoration or, user supplied, and having that life cycle of that item or multiple items flow through from transaction into decoration and ultimately into the goods being shipped. Again, that was a very fragmented, manual, labor-intensive, lots of hands-on process for many years. You could work it, but it was really hard to do at a cost-efficient level. Systems, technology, integrations have tethered that path along pretty well. And I only think it's going to get better, but that enables things like on demand to happen.
So if you have a big on demand business, we have like a thing called Doing Good Merch. If it grows to like where we're decorating, hundreds and hundreds of single items and then shipping them out, how are we going to know better what came in and where it goes and what goes on it? What's the status of that?
Well, so you need good dashboards, you need good status portals, right, to kind of understand that. And I would say
so the box comes in though, and how do we know what's in there and where it goes?
Right. So thankfully, like in our space, we have our LPM barcode scanning feature. We have data that can be provided. Again, I don't know if that's quite where it needs to be yet. So I would say that's certainly more in the work in progress of that exactitude. At SanMar, we're really good about picking that shipping accuracy. So you can be pretty trustworthy against the labels and the data on the external part of the box, but it's still a human-based process, so it'll never be foolproof. But I think that's part of really the last few steps, to be honest, is how do we bring in that product? How do we guarantee? 5 years from now, we may be talking about NFC embedded products and things that are truly, a wand goes over the box and it truly validates everything's actually there. But what we're seeing in 2024 are the beginning stages of maybe where that lands.
All right, and then big question, how is artificial intelligence going to impact it more than it already has? That seems to be growing exponentially.
Listen, I'd like to pretend I have a good answer for that. I'm 46, and frankly, AI makes me nervous, and I think it should for a lot of people, right? So, I do think that the early iterations of what that does can save a lot of people, especially in the software development side. There's a lot of work that it takes for shop management systems and web store systems to build these resources we've been talking about and give the ultimate best results to you, all the users. There's now, thankfully, ways you can use AI to shortcut what was a coder level, long hours, days process. It can accelerate that. So my hope is the things that we have now will actually better enable technology to grow better, faster.
From what I've seen, it seems like it's going to be possible to more nobody's business runs the same. You've been in enough businesses, right? They're all different, so the softwares don't really totally fit anybody's, right? Somebody has a lot more embroidery than screen printing, but it's more complicated than that even. And it seems like the customization part might be aided by artificial intelligence.
I think you're absolutely right. And it goes back to that, listen, we have spent countless hours coding this system to behave, to work in this particular way. And those guys definitely talk to you, all the users, and they're like, we want to do it this way, or we've always done it this way, right? And so there's never really been much flexibility or adaptability. I think you're absolutely right. If indeed things like AI can make those changes, then it's very likely you'll have more flexibility in the space.
Right, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but do you think that the future of this is going to be like the softwares that are out there already advancing, or is somebody going to just come in that has like a different approach and leapfrog over all?
No, I don't think that is, and that's what I actually love about our industry. I bear witness to so many outsiders coming in, taking what we do for granted, thinking it's all shortcuts and simplicity, using horrific words like disrupting the industry, and fail miserably on their face. There's so much human nature in what we do. There's such a tactile, hands-on touch and feel, and there's a lot of nuance and frankly a lot of chaos. So if I leave,
we call it torture.
Yeah, well, but I want to turn the knob on that a little bit. When you have those days in the office, in the shop, and you're dealing with all the back and forth, and oh my God, and the logo's slightly crooked, right? Those are days that you just are killing yourself, and oh my God, so frustrating. And those headaches, those rash burn moments are actually what I feel like has kept big technology from coming in. There are smart minds at smart companies that have often studied our industry, and they went, oh my gosh, how do they get it right this many times? Because if they've truly gotten the pool, they realize how murky, how scary, how frightful it is. And so I want you to take those days, those moments where you have a terrible incident and the stuff's coming back and we tried it the second time, it's still not right. I don't want you to have those as bad days. I want you to have those as really good days. I think it's kept our industry humble and charming and really big tech from wiping us all out.
Yeah, the death of screen printing. I guess I've heard that for like 35 years.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
I'm dying first.
That's right.
You want to say anything else about shop software, and then we'll maybe have some questions?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm really excited where the industry's at. Last year was a beautiful coming out of the pandemic moment. I saw a lot of improvement, a lot of change. I think this year things are still feeling more normal than they were the last few years. So I think there's some great systems that are exhibiting at this show. This is a great place to be, to go see, touch, feel, look those guys in the eyes, ask those key questions. I'm very excited about the future. I think, our industry was slow and pokey and lagging along for many, many years, and everybody ran a successful business with that. It was possible, but I think the page has turned. I think systems are only going to get better, and I think the community is doing a great job of keeping up.
All right. Any questions about software?
The only thing I won't answer is which is the best one. Please tell me that answer right now. And are they here exhibiting? I won't answer that question. Because it's not, there isn't one.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not a secret. It's like
everything's
gotta
unique
fit
and
yours,
customizable.
right?
It's a true one-on-one relationship.
What's the price range, actually, before we get questions? Where is it at right now from the least expensive to the lowest?
So that's a fair question, and I don't truly know the numbers 100%, but I would say you do have a couple class categories. There'll be some entry-level systems, couple grand to get in the door, couple $100 a month for just upkeep and support. Those will tend to be the cloud-based model, and actually I talk about those types of systems as a 3-column system. So you go to their website, they're going to have that good, better, best feature set. This is what you get for this amount. This is how much you get for that amount, and it's pretty clean and easy. However, if you find yourself on a shopware system and you can't find pricing, it's not because they're trying to be, shady. It's because a lot of times, it does cost a lot of money, and I think they want to avoid the sticker shock. But also, a lot of the more advanced systems are very customizable. So it can be a la carte thing where they have this component that's this and this component. And so I'd say at the upper end, within reason, those could be at $10,000 to $20,000 to get started. Don't forget, though, that money should be going towards them coming in, coaching, training, holding your hand. Bigger advanced system, gonna take a little bit longer to learn.
Doesn't mean they're shady, but maybe it does, right?
I'll let you decide, Rick.
That.
I'll let you decide.
And then what percentage do you think at this point is subscription versus purchased?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the cloud model, and I think every owner will tell you, it's taken over every part of the business, right? We used to use QuickBooks Desktop, gone. I mean, I think it's still around technically, but you get the sense they're not supporting it. We used to use Illustrator, Photoshop, all my Adobe suites. I don't get the boxes and put the disk anymore and install it. It's all moved to the cloud. So I think that's where most, not all, have headed. And of course, there's inherent benefits. You're getting the latest, greatest iterations. Now, if it's sloppy tech, just because it's on the cloud and you're getting it live, doesn't mean they don't load in some goofy stuff. And now you're kind of breaking in real time. But that's where it's headed, and really more about the layout, the design. Again, people want to work remote. They want to have it on their phone. They want to have a tablet station. And so it needs to have a pretty intuitive and working interface for that.
So I know it's a big decision to do one of these. How big is it? Like, if you start with one thing and you want to migrate to another system, do they make that possible, or is it really difficult at this point?
So I do a lot of tech talks with customers. We try to keep it high level, one-on-one. Again, every story is different, so there's no broad stroke there. But part of the tech talk, especially if it's somebody coming in for the first time, but to your point, if they're making that big decision, they've tried They've asked, they've been patient, they've been polite. They're going to make that major leap. I always try to coach that when you're going into a demo, first of all, don't dive into them showing you how all the system works. Have a first date. Have the questions for your side prepared. Hopefully they have some questions to ask you. Because if you go in trying to have a thorough discussion and neither party really knows each other, it's not going to work out. But one of those questions is, if I try this out and in 3 months I hate it, can I get my data? And a correlating question to yours is, I'm bringing in data. I don't want to start from scratch. How does that load in look like? Thankfully, there are things like comma separated values and sort of universal formats that most can translate in or out. So that's a key part of it. Have that conversation.
All right. Anything else you want to say before we have a couple of questions?
No.
All right. Any questions?
We answered all their questions, Rick. This is what that looks like.
They're stunned. There we
Right
go.
here.
Without asking the best one, who do you see as the top? Is there a top few that highest customer satisfaction that people like the most?
Yeah. Again, I didn't want to come here today and name specific names, but I will tell you the attributes, right? And again, I think it is good personnel resources. That's often left off on the brochures. When we do have a problem, what does that look like in resolution? Anybody can sell you something, whether it's a piece of equipment or piece of software, but how is that supported long term? So that's also on that kind of key questions that I usually share with folks is, things are going to get sideways. Your problem or mine, right? But how do we get that fixed? So in my opinion, the systems I'm seeing out there that are sort of emerging as market leaders, they're deeply integrated. They're deeply integrated with suppliers. They're deeply integrated with other systems of pocket services that maybe they don't provide. And there are some systems that do try to do it all, but again, you may have a point where it's lacking in this space, lacking in that space. But don't forget the human element to technology, because that you can have all the videos and maybe Chat GPT answering questions for you. It doesn't mean it's accurate. So how do we get things on the right track? The front end for training or the back end for when things go wrong?
Things go wrong.
It happens. Yeah. It happens once a month. Maybe.
Other questions? All right. How about a hand for Monty Mims?
Thank you. Thank you, Rick.